you're seeing it as I would have done it this way, so they can't be.
Well, could you restate your thing? Because I just put camera on. Like what atheists say.
A lot of times, the if how can there be a God if he allows tragedy, you know? Uh, but it's you know
Well, that was in response to my saying like how you can't have like how could you have the comedy of let's say like where a baby is born and you're like crying and laughing at the same time of just joy. You can't have that without the tragedy. Just like like you said, you can't have a future without a past, or you can't have a beginning without an end. And then we started talking about like how like only God is immortal.
no right because yeah you had a can have a story with them, but God can, but they say no, and they're like, if God, why don't we all just go to heaven? And it's like that's not how. I
Oh
would say,
yeah,
how do you dictate what God does? Now
yeah.
you're now you're now you're trying to tell God what to do. Like that's
I remember
also backwards.
that's kind of what started the little conversation too, because like I said that if we were all just in heaven just automatically and everything was just good and perfect, like there'd be no individuation. Like we're sort of defined by our struggles uh and I think that
It wouldn't be as
when we
personal.
die, well, I said that I think when we die, we die, and what it is that God honors us in His memory,
Yeah,
which is eternal. But like the life that we have is this one here and now.
yeah,
But I mean, you have the Christian viewpoint, which is like, life is eternal, which I can see that. It's just I frame it different, but I can see like from the Christian perspective of like being with, God forever in heaven is heaven itself. It's just I interpret it as more like being in God's memory, which would be the only thing that would be able to survive the heat death of the universe. Because the universe is gonna like entropy. It's if the universe had a beginning, it's gonna have an end.
right.
Only
Physical
God is immortal. So
because
the
he's
only
not
way to
right.
escape the heat death of the universe, which could be the lake of fire, so to speak, would be to be saved. But there's just different interpretations on what saved is. For me, it's more of like a personal living up to potential and trying to be right. And for you, it's Jesus Christ. Yeah, that's right. You started out with a quote.
To be honest, yeah, when the Pharisees came and asked Jesus, like about the law and this and that, he said, "Well, what do you need me for? You know, you have the law."
Yeah, like they were close minded.
Yeah,
As much as we argue about religion and stuff, I do think Jesus is pretty awesome, and like that's the most part of the Bible I do respect. I'm like saying that for the audience too, though. Do you have anything to add, or
uh, just that to point out the Pharisee thing. The Pharisees asked him questions to trick him, and he was like, he would just answer in ways that they couldn't even like grasp.
I don't know, it's like he out chest them or something?
Kind of, because they would come around like, "Oh, if you're so great, then what do you think about this? There's a flaw here," and he'd be like, um, "Skip that, like on to the next thing," you know?
Well, if he had the Holy Spirit, which of course he did, and they were playing by the laws of man,
Right?
of course they lost.
Yeah.
But that's partly me interjecting my own bias there.
No,
So,
it's true.
well, it's okay to some extent.
Well,
Everything's true and everything's false to some extent, according to my Discordianism, which is more so my thing.
anyway, I just thought it was one of my favorite things, like, because he kind of like almost joked with him, like almost laughed at him, like, well, if that's if you're gonna get hung up on that one thing, then why are you asking me questions? If you already know the answer, why are you even asking me?
Hmm. That's interesting. To the extent that we do ask questions, I think I'll close it there at 5 minutes and 30 seconds. Boop. Deep.